In response, our team is here to support and adapt to your needs. In 2026 and beyond, we can anticipate more change. And so, how we can help our people grow along in their roles is really important, and how we stay safe in an environment where tomorrow's hazards have not even been identified yet. Today, our presenter, Doris Bentley, is the founder of Centerpoint and an expert in talent management and organizational design. Doris comes with a practical, future focused perspective on how we can unlock the potential of our people and build workplaces designed for what's next. I've been having the pleasure of working with Doris for over a decade, and I'm excited to have her join us here today. So, welcome, Doris.
Good morning. Thanks, Wayne, for that introduction. And I'll just share my screen here and um, get up here. There we go. Great. Well, thanks. And good morning, everyone. I know how busy all of your days are, especially as the new year is getting underway. So it's great to have you here and investing time in your own learning. It's just really wonderful to see. So let me start with a moment that many of you will recognize. It's Monday morning. A manager sits across from one of her top performers, someone she's been relying on for years, and she's shocked when he says, "I think I'm ready to move on." Not because of pay, not because of workload, but because he can't see a future for himself in the organization. That moment of surprise, frustration, and scramble is happening in organizations everywhere. The leader is frustrated and the employee is conflicted. And together they try to solve a challenge that didn't start today. It actually started months or even years earlier in the way the organization was designed for performance, clarity, and growth. So scenes like this happen too often in workplaces of all sizes, and they share a common thread. The outcomes that leaders want are deeply tied to the people practices they built or inherited. That's what we're exploring today, how reimagining talent management can become a catalyst for better performance, stronger alignment, and a more resilient culture. And importantly, it isn't about doing everything differently. It's about doing the right things with clarity, intention, and adaptability, so your organization and people can truly prosper. So here's what we'll explore in our time together today. We'll start with why a new approach to talent management is needed and how work has evolved and what it means for organizations today. Then we'll explore a framework in three parts, each one building on the one before. The first is align, aligning your organization and people. The second is grow, growing their capability and performance. And the third is ultimately creating a culture that prospers through change. And we'll finish with a few key takeaways you can start applying as soon as you return to your workplace. Before we get started, though, I'd love to hear from you. In one or two words, what talent management challenge is top of mind for you or keeping you up at night right now? I'd really love to know. So if you could just pop your answer into the chat, just one or two words, it would be great to see what your challenges may be. Not sure, Wayne, if you can see those coming up in the chat.
Hi, Doris. We actually lost Wayne, so I'm going to be here to help you with those
Sure.
questions.
Okay.
So a few of the answers are hiring skilled labor, people management, buy-in for safety, hiring qualified personnel, culture, generational attitudes to work, retention of new people,
Right.
shortages, people management, development, a lot of similar comments.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing those challenges. And, they really are across the board, depending on your organization and where you're at. So they highlight exactly why we're here, because the environment that we're operating in has fundamentally shifted, and the old playbooks for managing talent practices no longer fit. So to set the table, let's take a look at what's changed. Remote and hybrid work have become a defining feature of modern employment. And while some organizations continue to embrace flexibility and hybrid arrangements, others are reintroducing structured in-office policies. And I think we've all seen and heard about this in the media. These shifts are influenced by sector-specific demands and economic factors and evolving employee expectations. So while the future of remote work in Canada is still very much unfolding, one certainty remains, and that's that flexibility will be a defining factor in work arrangements for years to come. We've also got a wave of experienced employees heading into retirement, and when they walk out the door, they take decades of know-how with them. At the same time, we've got younger workers stepping in, Gen Z, who now make up about 30% of Canada's workforce, and that's a really big shift. And then there's digital transformation and AI. So Industry 4.0, that's the industrial revolution we find ourselves in currently, it isn't just a buzzword anymore. Automation, robotics, data, you know all about this. They're here, and they're changing what's expected of workers. Even roles that were never considered digital before now require digital fluency. So from the front line to supervisors and executives, everyone needs a new level of adaptability. So with all of those changes shaping the workplace, we're also seeing a growing talent gap. So first we have the aging workforce. In the small and mid-sized enterprises, or SMEs in particular, leadership gaps are becoming urgent. With up to 75% of SME owners retiring in the next decade, succession management is critical. And if we don't act, decades of know-how walk out the door. So the challenge is, how do we capture that wisdom and set businesses up to thrive or reinvent themselves? So let me give you an example of this. I worked with a company where their head of operations retired after 30 years. He had all the vendor relationships, all the workarounds, all of the tribal knowledge. Overnight, projects started slipping because no one knew those shortcuts. And that's the cost of not planning for continuity. On the flip side, I've seen organizations pair retiring leaders with rising talent for structured knowledge transfer. When the senior leader did leave, the transition seemed almost seamless because the next generation had already been practicing the role. Which leads us to Gen Z growth and knowledge transfer. So skills development for younger workers isn't optional, it's essential. And it's not just technical skills, it's leadership, decision-making, and operational continuity. The real winners will make knowledge flow both ways, experienced leaders sharing wisdom and younger workers contributing digital fluency and fresh perspectives. And third, we have skill shortages, which many of you mentioned there earlier as one of your big challenges. And these are showing up everywhere, not just in technology roles. Even as vacancy rates shift, one half of SMEs still say they're facing labor shortages. And the real issue isn't headcount always, it's capability. And according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, nearly 70% report their biggest barrier is simply not finding enough qualified candidates. And here's the bigger challenge. We're not building skills fast enough. Last year, Future Skills Canada conducted an extensive national study and found that 43% of workers surveyed didn't receive any training at all in 2024. And most of the training that did happen was mandatory health and safety. So that means very little investment in the skills that drive performance, productivity, innovation, and career growth. So these shortages aren't just digital skills, they're frontline skills, supervisory skills, communication and problem solving, skilled trades, leadership and operational know-how. In other words, the gaps run across every industry and every level. There is some good news though. We're starting to see progress. More employers, educators, and policymakers are working together to rethink how skills are developed through micro-credentials, work-integrated learning, and industry-driven training pathways. These approaches are faster, more flexible, and much better aligned with what organizations actually need. And this lines up with what I hear from business owners all the time, that the challenge isn't a lack of applications, it's a lack of job-ready, capable talent. And that's exactly why skills-based talent management, how we hire, develop, and grow people, is no longer a nice to have. It's becoming the backbone of organizational resilience. So here's the thing. These pressures aren't abstract. They're showing up in your organizations every day. But the models we've relied on, they were built for a very different world. The old playbook was designed for stability, predictable jobs, clear hierarchies, long tenures. People practices were designed around that. But today's workforce looks very different. It's distributed, tech-driven, constantly changing. Work is fluid and project-based. Our systems aren't broken, they were just never built for this pace of change. And today we need faster decisions, more personalized employee experiences, and talent strategies that look ahead, not just back. So to accomplish that, organizational structures and practices have to evolve. Rigid hierarchies and static roles slow us down. So work now looks more like networks than ladders, teams forming and reforming around challenges. To keep up, organizations need clarity and expectations, but flexibility in how work gets done. Otherwise, they risk falling behind. So we see why the old playbook no longer works. The workplace has fundamentally shifted. So where do we start? The first step is alignment, making sure your organization design, our talent practices, and the way we bring people in are actually built for today, not yesterday. So when I say align, I mean making sure that your organization is strategically designed to actually meet your business goals, not just on paper, but in practice. So think of it as building a strong foundation. That foundation includes data about your people, smart organizational design, and the experience that you create for new hires. It also requires a clear understanding of what's driving your industry and your teams. If you don't have that clarity, it's like trying to build on shifting sand. So alignment sets you up to adapt and evolve instead of getting stuck in outdated structures. So what might this mean for you and your role? So depending on what you do, you may find that your focus will shift or even expand from functional internal partnerships that may have served you well to being involved with organizational system design, defining employee experience frameworks, and using analytics to shape talent strategy. So the starting point for bringing alignment to life is people analytics. And I know that analytics can feel like a buzzword because we hear about it a lot. But at its core, it's simply using data about your people to guide strategy and improve outcomes. So here's the catch. It's not about counting activities, it's about proving impact. And that's where the shift is, not just data gathering, but translating it into results. For example, especially in manufacturing, you often track time to competency, which tells you how long it takes for a new operator, a line worker, or technician to become confident, safe, and fully contributing. When that number is high, it's often a signal that onboarding or training isn't giving people what they need. When it improves, you see it immediately in throughput, quality, and fewer errors. And it's one of the clearest ways to connect development to operational results. Another is cross-training readiness. How many people can step into multiple roles or back up critical stations? In a production environment, a single point of failure, one person who's the only one who can run a machine, is a business risk. Tracking cross-training gives you a picture of resilience, how well you handle absences, surges in demand, or equipment issues without slowing down, or overtime dependency. Chronic overtime, as you know, often predicts burnout, safety incidents, and hidden capacity issues. It's a people metric with strong operational implications that impact revenue growth. So when you translate your people data into business outcomes, into dollars saved, revenue gain, or risks reduced, suddenly the conversation changes. These analytics really are the language of influence with your most senior leaders. It translates talent insights into strategy conversations. The future isn't more data. It's more meaning. It's more alignment between data and result. Data that not only supports the business, but helps to run it better. It's like a GPS rather than a rearview mirror. A second practice in Align is that of talent mapping. So most of us are familiar with organizational charts. They show boxes and lines. They're useful, but they're static. They tell you where people sit, not what they're capable of or where they want to go. Talent mapping shifts that focus. Instead of just roles and titles, you look at the people behind them, their skills, their aspirations, their development potential. You map that against your business objectives. That means asking questions like, what are our future goals? Who do we have today? Where are the gaps? And importantly, what are our people interested in learning or doing next? Having frank conversations with your people about their interests and aspirations is essential here. Sometimes aspirations can matter as much as skills, and you might be overlooking talent that's right in front of you. As technology and demographic shifts reshape work, talent maps help leaders prepare, not react. This helps you identify where you may be exposed on talent risk, not just turnover, but single points of failure. For example, understaffed roles or critical skills that no one is trained for. It's important to map these risks before they become emergencies. You can't run at a pace of change if there are significant gaps in your talent strategy. At the end of the day, talent mapping helps make sure you've got the right people in the right place at the right time, not by chance, but by design. It's a leadership tool to make sure that your team evolves with strategy. Now that we've looked at analytics and talent mapping, a third piece of alignment is your employer branding and onboarding, which are inextricably linked. Your employer brand is the promise that you make to potential hires. Onboarding is how you deliver on that promise. And this is the cornerstone of alignment, getting the right people set for success from the beginning. Even if hiring has slowed for some of you, and it may have, it's always key to building capacity. Today's candidates are evaluating you as much as you're evaluating them, and how you bring them into the organization will either confirm or contradict what you told them during hiring. Your onboarding will turn to retention and ultimate productivity. Imagine this. It's day one for a new hire. They're bright, motivated, exactly the kind of person that you want to keep. But within weeks, they're confused about priorities, unsure who to go to, and already questioning their fit. Nothing actually went wrong, but nothing was designed quite right either. As people leaders and HR professionals, you see these patterns earlier and more clearly than most. And you know the truth. Early performance and engagement issues are often design problems in structure, clarity, expectations, or culture. That's why onboarding has evolved from orientation to a full roadmap, one that connects people to your culture, values, and goals. And when it's done right, new hires feel supported. They build networks quickly and reach productivity faster. When it's done poorly, disengagement can start even before they've hit their stride. So today's essentials are simple but powerful. It's a multi-stage process. People have connections for success so that they aren't overwhelmed. They have buddies and mentors who aren't their manager, and this is especially important in hybrid or remote contexts. They have links to learning, so they know where to find resources, not just what to do. And above all, they have a 3 to 6 month expectation plan for clarity, accountability, and growth. One of the best onboarding accountability processes that I've seen came from a technology company in a high growth phase. And I wanted to share this with you because it's not something that we see all the time. This company had 10 or more new hires joining each month, and they knew that some could fall through the cracks. Their culture philosophy was to be both human and high performing, and with bi-weekly check-ins and real-time feedback and feed forward on tasks, responsibility, and performance. So it was a highly communicative culture. So what they did is they created a 90-day onboarding roundtable as a reinforcer, a short structured meeting with the new hire, their manager, HR, and a peer. The new hire shared what was meeting expectations, what was challenging, and what additional support they needed. It was a simple but powerful check-in where course corrections could be made early, and the process served to reinforce the employer brand, strengthen connections, and keep everyone aligned during that crucial ramp-up period. This roundtable had proven over time to accelerate integration and reduce early attrition, directly saving costs and ensuring the ROI on every new hire. So onboarding isn't an event, it's a system for designing experiences unique to each hire. Employer brand gets people in the door, but onboarding keeps them, grows them, and sets them up to prosper. So, one thing about alignment is that it's one of those things that can feel invisible when it's working, and when it's not, it's impossible to ignore. I'd like you to reflect for a moment on where your organization may be out of sync or could use some attention on alignment practices. Here's a list of a few of them. So what would be the number one gap in your alignment today or an area that you'd like to work on? Choose from this list or add another of your own to the list if you like, and just pop your answer into the chat. It would be great to have a look. No, Anna or Wayne, what are
Yep,
you
I'm
seeing?
back. Thanks, Doris.
Okay,
I'm just waiting for, we've got
sure.
people analytics,
Yeah,
just waiting for a few more.
yeah.
Onboarding and planning. We've got talent planning, clear pathways for growth and people analytics, leadership, um, and again, talent planning. So a lot of talent planning here for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much for those. And that's the point of Align. It's about creating a foundation that connects your strategy, your people, and your practices. So Align is really that base layer. So, when you mention the talent planning and those other things, those are core to your overall strategy and your success. Then once you've built that foundation, the next question will be, how do you help your people and your organization grow? And that's what we'll explore next. So grow means helping your people and your organization stay agile, adaptable, and ready for what's next. So two big pieces here are performance mastery and workplace learning. So performance mastery can't just be about annual reviews anymore. Growth today requires an ongoing agile approach, one that focuses on feedback, development, and course correction in real time. And learning has to be continuous. It's not just about one-off training programs. It's about creating an environment where people are always developing, gaining new skills, stretching into new areas, and preparing for future roles. When you think about grow, think about equipping your people with the tools and the mindset to evolve right along with your business. Grow covers a lot of ground, so it can be helpful to explore it across three key practices. So first, agile performance and coaching, how we manage and enable growth in the flow of work. Second, building a learning culture so growth becomes part of the everyday environment. And third, talent development and upskilling, equipping people for future roles and technologies like AI. Together, these create a system where growth isn't occasional, it's continuous. So let's take a closer look. When we talk about growth, the old model of performance management just doesn't cut it anymore. And I'm sure many of you have moved beyond that. People need feedback in real time, not once or twice every 12 months. So growth now means agile performance, frequent focused conversations that align goals, learning, and results in the flow of work. To help people see what's working, where to adjust, and how to build on their strengths. So think of it this way. A coach doesn't wait until the end of the game to give feedback. They're watching in real time, calling plays, and helping the team adapt and perform at their best. I worked with a mid-sized manufacturing company that learned this lesson the hard way. They were relying on traditional annual performance reviews. Goals set at the start of the year no longer reflected production realities by mid-year. When supply chain disruptions hit or quality issues spiked, the goals stayed the same, and the review process turned into a paperwork exercise rather than something useful. So they made the shift to agile performance, quarterly goal setting tied to real production demands, and short monthly coaching check-ins on both performance and safe work practices. Supervisors were also trained to give feedback in the moment on everything from process improvements to safety habits. So within 6 months, employees reported more clarity on what good work looked like day to day, and performance conversations became more about growth and not grading. So the leaders became enablers, not just evaluators of performance. And this is what forward-thinking organizations are doing. They're replacing those big annual summits with smaller, more frequent touch points. So less formal, more frequent, and more focused. These check-ins can take many forms: in-the-moment recognition, bi-weekly performance conversations, or quarterly development discussions. The goal isn't compliance here, it's connection. It's making sure that people know where they stand, what's expected, and how they're growing. For many leaders, bi-weekly check-ins work best. Short, 15 to 20 minutes, just enough time to realign, refocus, and recognize progress. And the payoff? A more accurate view of performance and potential, real-time awareness of your people, fewer biases, faster adjustments. Performance coaching isn't remedial, it's developmental, and it's for everyone: experienced leaders, solid performers, new hires, and emerging talent. Because growth is everyone's business, and the pace of change today is so rapid that no leader can succeed without ongoing dialogue. Agile performance mastery is one of the best ways to strengthen organizational health, to catch issues before they escalate, and to align effort and energy, and to keep people growing in the same direction. So as you think about your own team, remember this: agility and performance isn't about doing more meetings, it's about having better ones. It's about turning every conversation into a moment for learning, alignment, and growth. And that's how coaching becomes culture and how organizations and people truly grow. A growth culture is built on everyday learning, the kind that happens when people are curious, when they share what they know, and when they're given room to try, fail, and adapt. And when learning happens in the flow of work, it's not just another task on the to-do list, it's how the work gets done. And when people see that learning has value, they bring more energy, more creativity, and more ownership to what they do every day. What's different now compared to the past is intentionality. In the old model, learning meant waiting for the next course, the next conference, the next performance review, or even the next budget. Today, it's about becoming consciously learning minded, noticing what's changing, sharing what we're discovering, and building skills in real time with continuous feedback. So let me give you an example. A manufacturing company introduced a simple peer-to-peer skills swap program. Once a month, employees from different shifts or production lines volunteered to demonstrate a skill that made their work easier or safer, anything from quicker machine changeovers to troubleshooting common quality issues. These weren't safety briefings, and they weren't management-led. They were practical, job-relevant insights shared by the people who knew the work best. It cost almost nothing, but it changed the culture. Employees who rarely interacted began learning from one another. Veteran operators shared shortcuts that reduced downtime, and newer employees offered fresh ideas on using digital tools. Collaboration improved across the plant, not because of a new process, but because people were learning from each other in meaningful ways every day. And that's what learning in the flow of work looks like. It's simple, pure-driven, and powerful. And there are lots of ways to create that kind of culture. Start small. Build 5 minutes into weekly team meetings for everyone to share one thing they're learning or planning to teach. Use project retrospectives, not just to analyze results, but to ask, what did we learn and how can we apply it next time? Create cross-functional learning groups, marketing with operations, finance with sales. That's where innovation really lives. Encourage expert storytelling, real people sharing real experiences. These moments turn learning from a periodic event into a daily habit, and that's what modernizes the learning culture, and it's what keeps organizations agile, innovative, and resilient. So think about your own team. Where do learning moments tend to happen naturally, and how can you amplify them? If learning culture is about how we create the conditions for growth, talent development is about what we grow, the capabilities and career pathways that will shape the organization's future. And this is where talent practices really start to modernize, when we stop treating development as a series of programs and start seeing it as how the organization grows its future capability. As technologies like AI reshape how work gets done, every organization needs to think not just about today's performance, but tomorrow's potential. So what skills will matter most? What skills will matter most 2 or 3 years from now, and who in your organization is building them today? Talent development future-proofs both your organization, your people, and your business. It's not only about today's gaps, it's about preparing your workforce for new regulations, new technologies, and new customer expectations. So upskilling is one of the most strategic levers that you have. For example, a food processing company anticipated that new traceability requirements and digital quality systems were coming. So rather than waiting, they invested in upskilling frontline employees in digital QA tools, root cause analysis, and continuous improvement methods. At first, some employees worried that the changes would make their jobs harder. But as they gained confidence, they saw how these skills helped them solve problems faster and increase their value on the team. Several moved into quality roles or continuous improvement positions. The result? Higher engagement, better audit outcomes, and a workforce that felt prepared, not overwhelmed as the new standards rolled out. So that's the goal of talent development today, not just keeping up with change, but getting ahead of it by equipping people to grow alongside the business. Of course, offering development opportunities isn't enough. The question is, how do we make development actually work? It starts with alignment. When people understand how their growth connects to the organization's goals, development becomes meaningful. They see how new skills support both their career aspirations and business success, and that's what keeps motivation alive. For example, a mid-sized logistics company recently mapped its business growth goals to specific skills. Expanding into new markets meant upskilling their sales and service teams in global account management. So employees saw how mastering those skills tied directly to the company's success, and participation in these kinds of development programs jumped over 40% within 6 months. So next, development needs to be personal and social. Formal training has its place, but people learn best through experience, coaching, and community. Encourage mentorship, peer learning, and cross-functional projects, the spaces where growth actually happens. And finally, focus on application, because skill building takes time and practice. It's tempting to look for quick wins, but the most valuable capabilities, critical thinking, collaboration, adaptability, emerge through ongoing use, feedback, and reflection. So rather than asking, how many courses did people complete? Ask, how are people applying what they've learned? That's the shift from learning to development, and it's what ultimately turns potential into performance. When we get this right, development becomes self-sustaining. People see a future for themselves inside the organization, and that's when true growth for both individuals and the business takes root. So on that note, another question for you. We know the skills landscape is shifting fast and organizations are under pressure to keep pace. So I'm curious, where is that pressure showing up for most of you? And what is your organization or team's most pressing development challenge? Is it in upskilling people for evolving demands, or reskilling to redeploy talent, sharing knowledge effectively, or something else like building promotability and internal mobility? If you could take a minute and share that development challenge, it'd be great to see. Pop your answers into the chat.
So we got some answers coming in, Doris. So
Okay.
lack of support for managers, upskilling, we're seeing a couple of those. Reskilling, which is an important one, of course.
Yeah.
Cross-training between departments, um, knowledge sharing. Yeah, so reskilling, upskilling is really jumping up
Okay.
here for you.
Great. Okay. Well, those insights are telling, and they point directly to how your organization is experiencing change, right? There's just this ongoing need for that skill development. So whether the issue is skills, structure, or systems, development challenges are a mirror of how your organization's adapting. And I realize this is a lot, and it all may sound very aspirational in terms of the development and what that roadmap might look like. But it really is a journey, and every organization's starting point is different. So it's not about doing everything differently, but it's doing the right things with more intention. So the grow phase is about turning that awareness into action through performance and coaching in real time, and a culture where learning happens every day, and development that prepares people for the future. So the next step is making sure that those capabilities endure and prosper, is about converting growth into staying power, lasting results for the business, and a workplace where people choose to stay. So that's where we'll go next. So prosper is the point where growth becomes sustainable. It's not just about short bursts of performance. It's about building the kind of workplace where people want to stay and contribute over the long term. So two levers here make the difference. First is what I call re-recruit, intentionally keeping people connected to your mission and culture. And second, total rewards, the way we recognize and support people beyond pay. So together, these sustain growth so it lasts. Let's look at re-recruit. Re-recruit means leaders and teams are always renewing that connection to why people choose to be here. And it starts with renewing the connection to mission and values. At a mid-sized construction firm, for example, the CEO kicks off each quarterly meeting by spotlighting a recent project that advanced their sustainability goals, tying everyday work back to the company's environmental mission. So re-recruiting starts by reminding people why they're here. When we renew that connection to purpose, we're saying your work matters and it contributes to something bigger. And that's what keeps people choosing to stay, not just the paycheck. Then it's about equipping them with the tools and flexibility they need to succeed. So one manufacturing plant introduced dedicated improvement hours each month. Teams use this time for skill refreshers, cross-training, or tackling small process improvements they never had time for during normal production. It wasn't time off, it was time invested, and it signaled that the company trusted them to guide their own development. They also upgraded collaboration tools used between maintenance, operations, and quality teams so they could solve issues faster. And people stay when work feels manageable and well supported, not chaotic. And finally, it's about energizing them with recognition and growth opportunities. One firm began hosting quarterly growth conversations between supervisors and employees, not about performance ratings, but about skills, aspirations, and what support someone needed to take the next step. Promotions and recognition were tied to skill progression and initiative, not just tenure. So when people see that their effort is noticed, that someone is actively investing in their future, it renews that sense of forward motion, the feeling of I'm growing here. So re-recruiting is a future-ready practice. It's about leaders and teams intentionally re-enrolling in the mission, the culture, and the work we're doing together. It's how we sustain engagement in a world where expectations are shifting across generations and work models. And when people continually see evidence that they're valued and growing, they choose to stay. So let's take a look at the other lever in Prosper, total rewards. Traditionally, rewards have meant pay and benefits, but today organizations need a real compensation philosophy, one that defines how pay aligns with values, performance, and market realities. Clear pay bands are just the start. People want to know what compensation growth looks like at every level, so transparent communication is key. Fair, transparent, and competitive pay and benefits are the foundation. They create trust and stability, but they don't create commitment on their own. What truly differentiates an organization are the layers that support that foundation: growth and well being, things like learning opportunities, wellness programs, and flexibility that supports life inside and outside of work. And at full circle, the most powerful driver is belonging and purpose, recognition, kudos, community, and a sense of being part of something larger. When all these elements work together, they create a powerful employee value proposition, and they tell people that this place is worth giving your best. Having said all that, for many organizations, there's a gap between what the company offers and employees' understanding of what's available to them. A 2025 TELUS Health survey found that more than 3 in 5 workers report unclear or inconsistent communications about health and well-being programs, and 1 in 5 say they rarely or never receive information about them. So communication may need a lift here on both sides to really maximize the power of total rewards. Employees need to take the initiative to understand what's available, and companies can do a better job of communicating what's on offer. So employers invest heavily in these programs, but their value depends on employees taking advantage of them. So total rewards today are both relational and transactional. The future lies in aligning them with your values, your people's diverse needs, and a shared sense of purpose, a true force multiplier for sustainable engagement. So Prosper ultimately depends on leadership. Engagement starts with leaders. At the heart of strong organizational cultures are moderate to high levels of engagement within an organization's core ownership, leadership, or management team. Culture and engagement reinforce each other. The more people stay, the stronger the culture becomes, and the stronger the culture, the more people want to stay. But that cycle starts with you. If you are asked your team why they stay, what do you hope they would say? That reflection is a key to building a culture where everyone can prosper. Leaders must truly have an understanding of what an engaged employee looks like within their organization or team and what factors have contributed to their commitment. Leaders need to re-recruit themselves too. The reality is that most everyone, whether leader or individual contributor, has felt engaged or disengaged in something at some point. It's so important to keep a pulse on what may be changing that can either positively or negatively impact workplace wellness, your satisfaction, and that of everyone who works there. Prosper is self-reinforcing, so the stronger and more positive the culture, the more people stay and the more engaged they become. A reflection point here is, how will you keep earning your people's choice to stay and prosper with you? From the old playbook to what works now, leadership looks very different today. We've explored how the world of work has shifted while the old playbook no longer fits. Yesterday's workplace was built for stability, for a time when predictability and control mattered most. Organizations ran on hierarchy and credentials, and work was defined by clear tasks and reporting lines. Leadership meant authority, setting direction, maintaining order, and ensuring compliance. But today's workplace is very different. Success now depends on skills, adaptability, learning, and data. Work is organized around purpose and growth, not just tasks and titles. People thrive when they're trusted and empowered and encouraged to keep developing. And leadership has evolved too. It's no longer about control, but about culture shaping. And that's what advancing talent management is really about today. It's about connecting people and purpose and helping every leader become both a people developer and a culture shaper. Every organization has the opportunity to design for what's next. Align, Grow, Prosper gives you the path and the mindset to do it with purpose. So this is your call to action. Align ensures that your design and people practices reflect today's business realities. Grow builds the momentum, the learning and coaching that keep people and organizations evolving. And Prosper is about sustainability, the culture, recognition, and resilience that makes success stick. My challenge to you is to take one step this week. It might be a conversation with your team about what alignment looks like for you, or a reflection on how you're growing your people, or a fresh look at how you sustain success. So start small, but start now. A conversation, a new practice, a fresh look at how you grow your people. Because when leaders design for what's next, they don't just adapt, they accelerate. So thank you for your time and attention here. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, I think we've got some time for a few questions.
Thank you, Doris. Great. There's so many nuggets in here that you could just really dig into and really explore more. And I think, the changing landscape, I think you're right on the mark when it comes to how so much talent is leaving the workforce with troves of information and knowledge, and how we upskill and reskill workers in the future is really going to be important. And I think you really touched on a lot of great things and a plan and a path forward for folks. So let's now turn to the questions. We've got a little bit of time here. And so let me start with first one I've got here around workplace inspections. Question is, how can companies rely on employees to plan for the future in times when young people only want to work from home? Great question. So I'll pass that over to you, Doris.
How do you plan for the future when your younger workers want to be working from home? So first of all, I mean, I think there just needs to be role clarity and role clarification, and that's actually another practice within the Align area that I talked about there. So role clarification uh, make sure that the core responsibilities and the scope of the role, decision making, and how communication happens is really clearly laid out. And I think organizations can do a much better job sitting down with their employees, no matter where they're working, to make sure that that role clarification is there. So in terms of planning for the future, role clarification is kind of the base, making sure that people understand today is what's expected. And then you take a look at how people are performing, and then from there you can do that planning. So the fact that they're working from home or only want to work from home can itself create some challenges. But I think in role clarification, there's an opportunity there to frame those expectations around how communication will take place, how often somebody needs to be in the office for meetings and for connections with others, even though they may be working largely remotely. So I hope that kind of answers the question there.
Yeah, no, I think that is, and it is an ongoing challenge. I mean, obviously, not all workers can work from home, but I think knowing what the future will look like and how we can manage those hybrid work environments will be really key. Another question here: do you think most Canadian companies are considering this proactive approach towards talent management?
Yeah, I think many of them are doing pieces of it really well. So some of them, that need to upskill everybody is maybe really, really strong. So they're kind of getting on that and moving forward with that. Um, I think it's coming along. I think, I've been talking about this for quite a while, and I know that a lot of organizations, will do one little piece of this. But in terms of actually creating that entire roadmap, I think there's just still so many gaps there. Building the base of alignment around how roles are structured, how jobs are designed, and reevaluating whether or not the current design we have makes sense. It's like that example I gave at the beginning of the person who's just decided, no, I don't really have a place here. Where can I go? Well, part of that frustration is a reflection of maybe the way the work is designed, and that there's not enough of this, reimagining of how the work can get done to increase the satisfaction and the productivity and the results that people are looking for. So to go back to the question, I think there are lots of gaps here today. And some organizations, like, they have amazing cultures. They just do absolutely amazing things. Um, and maybe, so that says that they're doing a lot of the right things. On the other hand, in terms of coping with change and adapting to new technologies and people wanting to work from home, those are kind of the ongoing things that require them to continually touch base on their practices. Okay.
Wayne, are you still there? Oh, sorry,
Uh,
Doris. Wayne's had some issues. I can go to the next question.
okay.
Around cost of development. You talk about the cost of development, and a reminder about the BC Employer Training Grant, which is a cost sharing program for companies to invest and upskill their workers.
Yes.
And just a reminder that it covers up to 80% of training costs. So there's details in the chat as a reference point as well, if you wanted to comment on anything on there.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. And that leads to, what I did mention there at the very beginning around how we are seeing increasing work integrated learning and partnerships between government and industry. And that's one great example where organizations can take advantage of those kinds of government supports. And even partnering that with the post-secondaries. And many of them are looking at micro-credentials and other ways of providing that kind of training. So, you can weave in the kinds of courses, the training, the competencies that you want to train within a program like that, and really align that with giving additional credentials for people, which are really important for helping them feel that they're building their resume while they're working with the organization. So that's great.
Thanks, Doris.
Okay.
Um, I think we have Wayne back, but we'll wait for him to join again. There were some questions around the small business. Many of our members are small businesses. Do you have any strategies or tips about how small businesses, how small business owners can integrate some of the strategies you've shared today if they only have one or two employees?
Oh, sure. So, yeah, for those micro businesses, the ones that are small and don't have a lot of people working with them, I mean, there you do really want to start with, that talent mapping exercise that I mentioned there, really taking a look at, I've only got two employees, so what are the skills that they bring to the table? What am I expecting of them? And, what are their aspirations and what kinds of things would they like to be doing? And not that you want to necessarily always shape the work around them. You need to shape the work around what the business needs, but really talking to them about a talent map for themselves and bringing that down to a real individual level. So there's actually a real opportunity there in a much smaller organization to really bring this down and, just create that real kind of customized employee experience for the individual. So that's certainly one option there. So picking and choosing some of these things is really important. And the thing about the performance coaching and the ongoing regular check-ins, some of that can be made easier because there are fewer people to do those check-ins. And sometimes the owner will say, well, I talk to these people every single day, we're going back and forth all the time. And that's so true. And yet you still need to have a conversation every now and then around, Jane, how are you actually doing? How are you finding the pace of work and the volume of work? How are they doing with the experience of actually working there? So, and that can be, go for a walk for 20 minutes and just have that conversation, or go for coffee or that kind of thing. It can be very, very informal, but really talking to them about personally how they're doing with the experience at work is a different conversation than the transactional conversations around how we're getting work done and all the issues that we're solving on a day-to-day basis. So those are a couple of things there that I think you can do that. And I had this experience myself as a business owner with half a dozen employees where you really have to get down there to really personalize their experience for them, and it makes a huge difference in terms of their commitment, for sure.
Great, thanks, Doris. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties, but we're going with it. So I appreciate Anna jumping in and helping me out here. One of the things with questions here is there's frameworks around metrics, and of course, metrics keep changing. KPIs, OKRs. We have all these different ways of kind of focusing our teams. And so, what frameworks or metrics can measure the success of these modernization efforts beyond traditional performance indicators?
So again, it just depends on really, the nature of your business and what you're looking for. But certainly, first year, as an example, in a production environment, like first year turnover in safety sensitive roles is really important. Just kind of understanding what are the outcomes that we're seeing and what are the impacts there. So the organization I mentioned that had the strong onboarding program at 90 days, they really took a look at where people were at. I mean, those kinds of things have a real ROI on them. So there's no question that what's happening to your newer employees, how long they're staying, their ramp up time to productivity is very, very important. Um, Other metrics are overtime dependency, by team or even by role, because chronic overtime, it really does predict burnout, and safety incidents and hidden capacity issues. So it's a real sign of things. It could be you're not staffed well enough, or it could be a skills deficit from the individual, or it could just be, process problems that are preventing people from being more effective. So there's a number of different metrics there, and I guess it really depends on the business and those outcomes. Yeah.
Yeah, having run a lot of
Mhm.
organizations over my career, you nailed it. It's so many of those deficits, and sometimes as leaders, we can't always see that. And so I think having a perspective from an outside coach or expert is really helpful, whether it's your process, it could be your talent, management side of things. There's a lot of things that really go into, ensuring that, your team is well equipped to succeed. And I don't think one solution is really the answer. So that's great insight. The other question here that we have is how can organizations balance advanced technologies like, say, AI-driven analytics or with human-centric employee engagement and development, ensuring inclusivity across diverse and multi-generational workforces? This is something I talk about a lot.
Yes.
It's because we've got four generations in the workforce today, how we interact, how we train, the adoption of AI versus those that kind of wait a second, I'm not comfortable here. This is a big question. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I think one of the most important things organizations can do when you're that diverse and then you've got all this technology just kind of coming at people. I mean, I think this whole concept of cross-functional training groups, cross-functional project groups, I think is really essential so that people understand one another, both from a work perspective and a business impact perspective, as well as a personal perspective on how the work is affecting them. So you get maybe your more junior workers with your mid to senior level, and and then you get some technical specialists in there. So if you can have this cross-functional thing, I think that really increases the level of understanding and the potential output in terms of what you will get. So and sometimes that seems like a lot of work. Well, here are our specialists over here. They're going to work on this technology thing and they're going to show the rest of us what we need to do. Getting everybody else's input, whatever that might be, even when people have had absolutely no experience, of course, many haven't with these new technologies, getting their input anyway. I mean, it helps reduce the fear as well and helps them kind of understand what the thinking is and how we're all kind of learning this at the same time. So that's one suggestion.
Yeah, no, I like that. More that we could probably provide on that at future answers for folks. Just looking at the time, maybe just another quick one. Maybe what are three best practices employers can use to retain great employees? I mean, this is the big mystery question, right? What keeps your employees? Why do they stay? There's always the comment of, good employees lead bad bosses, but it's not always bad bosses.
No,
It's
it isn't.
it's
No,
it's a lot of other things. So, what are
absolutely.
your three best practices?
Um, my three best practices would be role clarity.
Yeah.
Role clarification is so important because things change a lot for people, and making sure that people understand scope of work, expectations, output, what success looks like. So that's really important. So you're aligning people with what the business needs and what the organization needs. So that's the first one. The
Yeah.
second one is that communication, the regular touch points between the managers and the employees. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much. And then the third one I would say would certainly be that whole issue of recognition.
Yeah.
and showing people that they're really valued in the very many ways that companies do that. So I talked a bit about that in the Prosper examples. Yeah,
Yeah, the authentic side of it, I
yeah,
mean, is it just ticking a box, or do you authentically really want to celebrate the successes and accomplishments of your individual team members? So, what would you say? How do you manage this? We talk about talent management and talent development, but when you're a flat organization, like a lot of organizations don't have this
yeah,
natural hierarchy that, one day you're going to become the CEO. I mean, there
yeah,
could be a lot of distance between that and the worker. What do you do? What would you say to organizations that have flat organizations,
yeah.
and how
Yeah,
would
and
that?
that surely is the reality. Promotional opportunities are few, but I say the opportunities to grow are many. So I think really asking individuals, what would you like to do more of within your current role? Where do you see opportunities that we're not taking advantage of here
Yeah,
that you might be able to contribute?
yeah,
Those kinds of things. In terms of peer mentoring or peer relationships, is there something that you would like to teach others or learn others? So learn from others. So I think that there's always opportunities for people to grow in place and to bloom where they're planted. And
yeah.
it's a requirement actually for everybody today. So if you've got that learning culture, those kinds of questions are part of the dialogue.
I like that bloom where you're planted. It's a really good one. And I think, again, we're always looking for talent. It's hard to find good talent. And so when you get them, you want to make sure that you're really kind of, giving them that opportunity to still grow, even if you are a flat organization.
Absolutely.
Thank you
And
very much, Doris. I mean, we are unfortunately out of time. That went really
sure,
quick, but I really wanted to thank you for joining us today. The lots of
absolutely.
great nuggets. I know you're going to hang around a little bit for answering some questions and being able to provide more questions. So before I go into my remarks, I'll let you have your final remarks.
Sure. Okay. So I just wanted to let you know that I do have a course called Align, Grow, Prosper. And you can learn more about it at centerpointlearning.ca. And if you have any questions about that, I'm always happy to answer. Yeah.
Great. Thank you again, Doris. I got a couple announcements here. Obviously, we've got our advanced registrations for those Make It Safe savings that are coming up for Vancouver Island March 31st, our first Make It Safe for 2026, and of course, our Okanagan Make It Safe April 23rd. So get the best rates now and save early. So go ahead and check us out at makeitsafe.ca. To kick off your 2026 health and safety training, save 20% on all private classes right through to the end of this month, I think. Book your training before February 27th for a class anytime before September 30th, and you will save. So check out the link for more information on that. And finally, please do get your nominations in for our 2026 Safety Excellence Awards. It comes to the end of this month for the nominations. Learn more about this by clicking into the chat link. And again, last year we sold out. We are expecting a large crowd this year, so please do get your votes in, and we look forward to seeing you there. Watch an email with a link to today's recording of the webinar, and please share your feedback on the topic ideas in the survey as you leave. Again, feedback from you helps us bring relevant and important speakers to tackle the topics that you want to hear about. So please do give us that feedback. And thank you again. We really appreciate all of you for attending today. I hope you found it a benefit. And again, if you need anything, please check out our website at manufacturingsafetyalliance.ca. So thank you again. Have a great day, everyone.